Surah Al-Jumu'ah, Surah number 62. It is comprised of 11 verses, and even if you look at its simple translation, you would come to learn about the fact that this surah is divided into 3 paragraphs. Verses 1 to 4 make one paragraph, 5 to 8 make another, and 9 to 11 the third paragraph. The surah is actually talking about the blessing that the Almighty has bestowed upon the children of Ishmael, in that God has sent His messenger to these people now, and therefore they should take the message seriously and should value it and not ignore it, or else they are going to be in serious trouble. The first 4 verses are therefore talking about the fact that it has been God's kindness upon His people who were ummi, unlettered, that He sent to them a messenger who recites to them His verses, does their tazkiyah, purification and growth, spiritual and moral growth, and teaches them the book, the law, and the wisdom, which we have already seen is comprised of morality, moral principles, as well as beliefs. This is what the first paragraph emphasizes. It mentions the fact that this is a great blessing the Almighty has bestowed upon a nation, the children of Ismail, and they must make sure that they are living up to the expectations that this status entails. The second paragraph is talking about something different. You find, as indeed in many cases of the Quran, that all of a sudden there is a new subject. From verse 5 to verse 8, what we read is that the Almighty is talking about the children of Israel who were given another book, Tawrat, but they did not take it seriously. They did not value it as it deserved. So the Quran says that the example of those who were given the responsibility of Torah and they did not undertake it properly is like the example of a donkey on which there is a load of books that has been placed, and obviously the donkey doesn't even know what treasure of knowledge is there on its back. It's a very bad example of those people who actually literally rejected the signs of God, and God Almighty never guides those people who are unfair to themselves, who don't perform well in the moral domain. And then goes on to mention the fact that these Jews, they think that they are the chosen people of the Almighty, and therefore the next life has success for them in store. But the fact of the matter is that they will not ever be prepared to look forward to death. And therefore the Almighty says that tell these people who are Jews that if you really think that you are the favorites of the Almighty, then wish for death. But they are never going to do it, because they know what they have sent forth in the form of their deeds. And the Almighty says that tell them that the death that they are running away from is most certainly going to meet them, and it's going to take them towards before the Almighty, who knows all that is hidden and is manifest, and He is going to let you know about all that you used to do. Now this is the second passage, a completely different subject, talking about the fact that Jews were given a book, but they did not take it seriously. They did not fulfill the obligations that they were expected to as a consequence of being the custodians of the book. And the end result was that they ended up becoming extremely poor humans in moral performance, and the Almighty is going to reject them and their performance on the Day of Judgment. Obviously, the first passage and the second passage are bound, linked in an understanding that is actually conveying to the children of Ishmael, those who have been given the Quran and the last prophet, to value what the Almighty has given them and not become like those who were given a book earlier and they did not take it seriously, and the end result was that they became, in the eyes of God, rejected people. They are not going to have any success in the hereafter. So be careful. The third passage, which begins from verse 9 and goes on to verse 11, is a bit more difficult for it to get related to the rest of the two. It talks about the Jummah prayer and asks believers to rush towards the prayers and leave aside all human activity, all worldly activities when the call for Jummah prayer is given. And it also talks about the fact that after the Jummah prayer is over, they can go back to their work, but remember God, they should remember God as much as is possible. It talks about the fact that there are some people who are not taking the Jummah prayer at the moment seriously. When the prayer is going on, the khutbah is being delivered by the Prophet, and there is some caravan of trade coming close to the place or some other activity of entertainment happening, some people would get distracted and move towards those activities. The Almighty is asking Muslims to take Jummah prayer seriously and not get distracted by whatever else is happening. Obviously, it's a little difficult to see what exactly could be the reason why this passage has been placed in this particular surah. A little deeper reflection, however, will give a good idea as to why the Almighty has done so. While the first passage is talking about the Almighty's blessings on the children of Ismail, in that they have been given God's book and God's messenger. The second passage, verses 5 to 8, is telling them in the historical perspective of an example where a similar blessing was given and it was not given its due consideration. It was not taken seriously, and therefore the result was unpleasant for the people who were given that obligation. The idea is that the Muslims should learn their lessons from that historical example of the Jews and should take God's message seriously. The third passage is talking about the fact that the Muslims have now been given this message and they are expected to follow it properly. The Jummah prayer has been initiated for them, like many other expectations in the law, in the Sharia. They should not treat the Friday prayers like the Jews had done in the case of the Sabbath law. They were asked to observe the Sabbath law, the Saturday, the entire day, as a day entirely meant for the Almighty. No worldly activity was expected to be done, undertaken by them, and many Jews ignored the Almighty's expectations for Sabbath day. The Almighty is asking believers to make sure that they don't do so, and they should take the expectations of the Friday prayers seriously so that they succeed in ensuring that the message that they have been given by the Almighty is being treated seriously and properly by them, and that they succeed in this world and the next one. So, all in all, we have seen in these two presentations the fact that the Quranic surahs, when we see their verses, paragraphs coming next to each other, they have been sequenced in a manner that they appear very closely linked with each other as far as their meanings are concerned, The only thing is that the reader is expected to read these verses with deep reflection, and he is going to be able to get much more meanings out of his reading if he is trying to understand as to why one passage leads to another and the third one.